For several of us that have recently purchased a Smith & Wesson 5.7, we've been experiencing some magazine feeding issues. So I took some time today to try to figure out the cause of this. So if we take a look at an FN 5.7 magazine, notice how when I press on the front of the follower, there's very little follower tilt. For the most part, that follower is going straight up and down. The other thing is, if we load some rounds and take a look at that, and for this video I will be using the American Eagle 40 grain full metal jacket. So if you look at the tip of those bullets, there is still a gap between the inside wall of that magazine and the tips of the bullets. So I'm confident that those will travel up and down with little to no drag. Now if we compare that to the Smith & Wesson 5.7 magazine, when I press down on the tip of that follower, you can see there's quite a bit of movement and follower tilt prior to it moving downward. Now let's load some rounds in there. We'll take a look. So in comparison, if you take a look at this magazine, there is very little gap between the tips of those bullets and the inside wall of the magazine. The other thing is, if you look at the magazine catch, the tip of that follower is tilted down considerably in comparison to the feed angle of this top round. So what I've noticed is, as you load this magazine, as the rounds make it further down the magazine, they start to level out. And I believe that is what's causing the binding when you load this magazine to a capacity of 22 rounds. Now with my calibers, if you measure one of these American Eagle full metal jacket rounds, they measure out to an average of 1.585. Now according to Sammy's spec, the max overall length of a 5.7 round is 40.5 millimeters or 1.594 inches. So these American Eagle rounds are approximately 9 thousandths shorter than the max specification. Now if we take the magazine body of the Smith & Wesson mag, so about the maximum measurement I get when I measure the inside of this magazine is 1.579, almost 1.580. So the inside dimension of this magazine is 9 thousandths about 6 thousandths smaller than what I measured the length of the American Eagle rounds to be. So like I said before, since those rounds are measuring longer than the inside dimension of this magazine, they may feed okay, provided they maintain that proper feed angle. But with that follower tilt, as those rounds level out, they're basically binding inside that magazine because there isn't enough internal space in this magazine to accommodate the rounds being at that angle. The other thing is this follower. So if you look, the legs on either side of the follower are quite short. I think if Smith & Wesson lengthened those and just reduced the overall magazine capacity to 20 versus 22 rounds, it might help eliminate some of that follower tilt. Also, if I measure the length of this follower, it measures 1.553 inches. So that's approximately 26 thousandths slop. So that also could be what's contributing to the follower being able to tilt downward and bind those rounds in the magazine. So I hope this information you find useful. Like I said, I'm quite intrigued by the new Smith & Wesson 5.7. I like the fact that it's gas operated, has very little recoil. But if Smith & Wesson can't figure out these magazine issues, they may not be as successful as what they wanted to be.